Gumball is officially back, and there's quite a lot to cover since my last video on that. The very first bombshell dropped on us is that the show is now called The Wonderfully Weird World of Gumball. We see that they made a deliberate change to the logo while still trying to keep it similar aesthetically. Now this is interesting because of how the show ended. If you don't know, The Amazing World of Gumball released what I'd consider to be its last episode June 24th, 2019, titled The Inquisition, a season 6 episode that had many of the characters transform into human versions of themselves in a desperate ploy by Superintendent Evil, who is really just Rob, one of the main antagonists of Gumball, in disguise. So does this mean we'll be getting confirmation on what happened after the events of the Inquisition, or is it a cold reset? Well, while I have an answer on that, let's look at the trailer first because it gives a clue.
Ugh, how late? About 7 years.
As you saw, they acknowledged the about 7-year gap between the Inquisition and now, which, to be honest with you, is how I view the show. Technically, within 2019 and 2021, there were 2 miniseries titled Darwin's Yearbook and The Gumball Chronicles. However, both are simply just clip shows that feature very little new or interesting in them in an attempt to keep interest with the main show, and honestly don't hold up that well because of the nothingness that they are. Like, you don't need me to tell you that cartoon clips and compilations run wild on every social media platform. The characters don't look aged up, and Gumball is the perfect type of show to mess around with the reality of everything, and I don't necessarily need them to be aged up at all, but I don't mind if they were. Now, the first bombshell was pretty crazy, but the second one seems crazier, but I'd argue it made the most sense in the world. The second bombshell is that this will be streamed on Hulu, or Hulu for Disney Plus, rather than Cartoon Network or Max. Sorry. HBO Max now, what a timeline we're in. And this was not expected at all, but I'm not entirely mad at the decision. HBO Max has systematically removed so much of its animated catalog that I wouldn't trust it to be there for long. And I don't think Cartoon Network is in the best spot to be airing a new show on their network with very little support. Gumball was already on Hulu, or Hulu for Disney, for some time, and so were similar shows such as Prince Ivandoe, a Cartoon Network show that follows a similar style to Gumball. This isn't to say that I believe Hulu will treat it good, but it is to say that I think that Hulu will treat it better than HBO Max. I trust it more. With that said, the show will stream on HBO Max in international markets, just to be clear. However, this does mean that they'll most likely dump the entire show, if not chunks of the entire show, on Hulu when it releases, and while that'll be great for the first month, I really don't want Gumball to come and go like that, but most streaming shows tend to be that way. Now, speaking of support, does this revival season have support from the creator Ben Bouclet? Actually, yes. This is a quote from him and his team. "What an amazing opportunity to play with these characters again. Fans can look forward to more antics and misadventures in Elmore because Gumball and Darwin haven't grown up much since the last we saw them." We haven't either. In a big twist though, outside of the duo having their voice actors change, which is quite normal for the show, while Nicole and Richard are still going to be voiced by the same people, Anais is getting a new voice actor. And no, we don't hear what Anais's new voice is in this trailer. Now, the third bombshell actually doesn't come from the video itself. It comes from the description. It seems like we have the premises to a few episodes. Quote, "Welcome back to Elmore, where the laws of reality are a joke and family life is anything but ordinary. Whether he's battling an evil fast food empire, facing off against a sentient AI in love with his mom, or trying to stop an Anna Joe from wearing pants, Gumball drags Darwin, Anais, and the rest of Elmore along for the ride. With even wilder stories, bigger twists, and surreal humor, they had to rename it The Wonderfully Weird World of Gumball." Now this is interesting because of a photo that's been circulating around the Gumball space for some time. This photo appears to be the titles of the first 26 episodes, and also showing that we have 40 episodes to look forward to, and I'm not even gonna try and guess which ones match up with the concepts in this description. Literally, the last episode I spoke about was called The Puppy, yet had to do with a psycho turtle. Now, does this mean that we're in the dark for all of the episodes? Actually, no. We seem to know what the first episode titled The Burger will be about. Let's read the thread together. Now this is a thread from @Midumir. I hope I'm not getting that incorrect. He went to the 2024 Annecy International Animation Film Festival and detailed a little bit about what's going on with Gumball among many other properties. Also, I will have to parse through this a little bit because it's not written in grammatically correct English, so bear with me. pun intended. Episode 1 is about Gumball and Darwin, mostly Darwin, trying to eat healthy, but they discover it's hard to do so. Why? Because it's all rigged and every store in town is owned by one person, Mr. Bilderberger. It's a succession of gags showing it's all connected. The episode stars Miss Simeon trying to show for the second day the damages of eating Joyful Burger. Mr. Small wears a heart costume and she just punches him while describing symptoms. And obviously Darwin is scared and Gumball's just hungry. They try to beat organic food, but it ends up being way too expensive and all of their budget is spent on one avocado. As soon as they leave the market, it just rots. They search the trash to find stuff to grow. Larry is working in every store in town, that's the gag. When they try to eat a salad, it's just Larry cutting a burger differently. Larry has to destroy the food in the trash. When Gumball and Darwin grow their food, he burns it because his boss owns the seeds they planted. They end up starving themselves for the whole episode, getting thinner and thinner to the point of anorexia. They ask to see Larry's manager, who thinks that they can't get to him unscathed. They did, but with black eyes. And yeah, not gonna spoil more, but the end is unexpected, I'd imagine they're saying here. So if this is to be believed, this means they aren't addressing the events of the Inquisition in The Burger, which appears to be the first episode of the 7th season, which is a little bit of a bummer, but at the same time, if we're being honest, it's not like the Void was that big of a component even within season 6. There's many episodes that feature the Void throughout the show, including an episode titled The Void, but a lot of season 6 did not acknowledge it at all. So while I can see them covering it later on in the season, having it not be the first episode is not a deal breaker for me, especially since it seems like the movie, titled The Amazing World of Gumball the Movie, seems to still be in the works, as the thread claims that Ben is still working on the story and script, and has reflected on how COVID, which happened right after the 6th season, may have actually given him more time to refine the script to his liking. Now it is important to note that Ben has come out and said that he didn't want to end season 6 that way, and has been banking on the movie to even things out. So best case scenario is that the movie provides a proper conclusion and season 7 is allowed to bloom without the big uncompleted plot point in the corner. Speaking of endings, I want to revisit the thread because it says something about that. This thread goes over something interesting and I kind of want to hear your guys' thoughts on it. Now this is a quote from Ben himself. You get like a few fun stuff. I'm kind of happy of the finale episode. It's nice and emotional and it's kind of like for the fans as much as it is for me. That makes me wonder if season 7 is going to be the one and only season, but it's too early to tell. 40 episodes is way more than we've had in a long time and I think that's the best way to look at it. You can tell everyone's super excited, and I mean, for the longest time people were clinging to announcements made on LinkedIn about the progress of season 7, so it is nice to have something concrete and public. You have my word, when this comes out, I will be covering it. Dare even say I'll probably be the #1 person covering it, but until then, check out my video on the Inquisition. It will go over everything you need to know about how the show temporarily ended to catch up on what might be in season 7.